Great, so I'm here with Mike Solimano, President and General Manager of the Killington Pico Resort. And I've been a skier here for about 20 years. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with you about the direction that you're taking the resort. As someone who's been around for a while, I've really seen a lot of exciting new things happening over the last few years. And that's what I want to talk to you about.
Great.
So let's start there. Tell me about kind of your vision and direction for the resort.
Yeah, I mean, I've now been in charge of the resort. This is going into my 6th year. So I've been here before in the finance role. So, I think the biggest thing I've focused on and our management team's focused on is really connecting more to the guest. I'm not sure in the past we always were as focused on the guest, and so we spend a lot more time thinking about things from the guest perspective. I know it sounds simple, but in a lot of businesses it's easy to kind of forget that, and you kind of think about the numbers and all the other things. And so we've kind of gotten back into a lot of the basics of surveying. What are our guests telling us? What are they saying? Are we reaching out? Are we actually having conversations with them? And those types of things. And another big thing I'd say, so we've been pretty focused and really been growing our guest survey scores. So I'm pretty proud of where we came from and where we've been. And we last year hit the best we ever did. We hit our record for
Excellent.
The what we call Net Promoter Score, which
Sure.
is a score that people, will they recommend your business to others? So we use that as pretty much, most resorts use it and a lot of businesses use it. So
Sure.
to us, that's a big thing. And then, I think the other thing, I've tried to personalize the resort. That's something we spent a lot of time trying to, either myself or our management team being out talking to guests and let it be a little less like we're the big bad company and we're just a bunch of people trying to run a place and we're skiers and we're trying to make sure the experience is good. And hey, if you have ideas, we'll take the feedback.
Right.
And some of it we can implement and maybe we can't, but at least I can tell you, hey, we can't do that.
Right.
Let's answer. Let's not just pretend that, we run it so we know and you don't.
Right, right. No, that's great. I mean, I've worked with a lot of organizations who assume they know what the customer wants, right? But when you get out there and you talk to your customers, right, a lot of times you have some ahas.
Right.
So any of those type of moments that you've had as you've been out surveying customers, talking to customers, ideas that they had that you've implemented that have really made a big difference?
Well, I mean, there's just a million little ones.
Yeah.
One of the things in our business is because every day changes. We have 2 feet of snow out there today. We didn't have that 2 days ago. So now the challenge we have today is completely different than it was
Sure.
the other day, right? So the business is always changing, mainly because of weather. And so what happens, you also find that we think we know what's happening out on a trail or in a certain part of the mountain.
Sure.
But,
Sure.
we might not have been there. I might not even have been that part of the mountain for a week or two.
Sure.
And so what I've liked to do is just, encourage people to give us feedback. I get a ton of emails, they send us stuff, they stop in and go, hey, on this trail you could be doing this or you should have done that. And we have a lot of, people out on the mountain trying to always make sure it's great, grooming and ski patrol and all those. But, I think I look at it as an extension of, our team, that our guest wants to make this place great and they give you feedback. And you know what? At times, some of it you don't want to hear because it's not always positive, and
Sure.
I just kind of try to get the team to say, you know what, let's think about that. Might be a good idea.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
I don't know off the top of my head. I mean, there's been certain trails or this and that we would maybe have closed over time, and then guest says, why don't you do this? And then we open it and we say, yeah, we could do that. And so there's no, I mean, I'm sure if I went back I could find some specifics, but
Sure.
I'd say every day there's things where I'll get an email forwarded to someone on our team and they'll go, yeah, that person's right, we could change that.
Sure.
And so we just change it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of adapting to every day is something new and we can continue to improve. It's sort of like a restaurant. Yesterday's meal might have been great. The same meal today doesn't naturally mean it's going to be as good. You got to keep trying to improve. So
Excellent.
we're kind of working on the constant improvement model.
That's great. That's great. So you've been in this role about 5, you said going into your 6th season. As you kind of think back over that period of time, what are some of the accomplishments that you're most proud of?
Well, I already mentioned that we've been focusing on the guests, so we've went from a pretty low survey score up to pretty much a top score in the East. So for us, that's important. We've focused on also doing the same for our staff. So we've been doing more internal survey guest or employee surveys, and
Sure.
trying to, sit and do small focus groups, just like we do with our guests, trying to do them with our staff and say, what can we do to make this a better place, right? It's a ski resort, it should be fun. But like everything, you get lost in all the things, and how do we make it fun again? How do we make
Sure.
you want to be engaged and make sure you're delivering, a great experience for our guests? So we do a lot of different meetings where we say, how can we improve your department, right? What tools can we give you to provide better experience? So we've been doing a lot of that, a lot of feedback from guests and employees about how we improve the experience for everybody. So our employee surveys have been continuing to rise too during that period. So to me, I think when your employees are happy and your guests are happy, naturally good things happen to your rest of your business, or
Sure.
revenue's been doing well. I think those things are important. The other big things we've done, we've made a lot of progress in summer, so that's probably one of
Yes.
the biggest. Our revenue in the last 5 years has grown 250% in summer.
Excellent.
So that's really been nice, and we've been able to grow our year-round employment. When we started getting back into summer and really laying out a whole plan for mountain biking and our adventure center, we had about 350 employees in the summer. This summer we were close to 600.
Wow.
So really that's helped the whole community. There's businesses now. Restaurants are opening year-round that used to close for the whole summer. You drive up the road and a lot of the places looked abandoned in the summer, and now people are, they're treating their properties better, and there's business here, and so I'm, pretty excited of what we've accomplished in that, and in the summer business. That's been really fun.
That's great. One of the things that I have observed and heard about, honestly, is the positive relationships that you've built or rebuilt on behalf of the resort. And you just alluded to it a bit, by being open in the summer, that helped other area businesses. But talk to me a bit about that relationship building, relationship with the town, business leaders, community leaders.
Yeah, I think so. When Powder first bought Killington, they tried a whole bunch of different things, trying to get their Killington's costs under control. A lot of it was. So,
Sure.
of course, some of the choices that we made, and I was part of the company at that time, so I'm not saying it was somebody else. We were trying to figure out a lot of things, and so some of that caused some ill will in the area. And so when I took over, we kind of just sat down and said, okay, let's start over. What do we need to do? And we just kind of came to the conclusion, right, we need to get along with the businesses in the community, the town. We need to work together as opposed to them looking at us as like the enemy and that
Sure.
type of thing. So, we spent a lot of time, and most of it, I'm just a big fan of just be open and tell people what you're doing, and tell them what you're going to do, and then try to do what you say you're going to do and follow through. And I think for the last 5 years, our team's been laying out our plan and explaining it. I've been going to every meeting, from town to condo associations, all over the place, just laying out, here's what we're doing, right?
Sure.
Here's what we can do, here's what we can't do, right? So some things people want you to do, and if you can't do them, let's just tell them the truth. So we're trying to be very transparent, just saying this is, there's limitations, we can't do this. You might want
Sure.
this, we can't do this, but we're going to do this. And
Sure.
And what do you need? And so, it was clear the town wanted to grow year-round business. That was the biggest focus.
Okay.
And, there are a lot of struggles over the years with that, with whether there was the resort's responsibility or the town's, and it went back and forth. And I think, now we've kind of laid out a whole summer plan, and I think everybody seems to be behind it. And I think, of course, since it's having success and we did what we said we'd do and invested in summer, I think we've gotten a lot of credit for, hey, they did what they said they'd do. And so I think that's just built a level of trust, and I think, so from that standpoint, we look at it as a relationship where we need each other.
Sure.
Generally, some businesses we even have are competitive with businesses in the town, right? We own restaurants at the resort, we are in retail and other things, but we generally try not to compete too much with most of the area businesses. Like, for instance, we don't sell ski hard goods, because
Sure.
there's a lot of businesses in town. We've chosen that's just something we've decided we didn't want to do to compete. So, so anyway, I think we've made a lot of progress there. And then since that happened, we were looking at some different things we could do more kind of region-wide, and we talked to Lyle and Mary down in Rutland, and we're just chatting with them about stuff we were doing for summer, and we said, hey, we think we could combine our mountain bike program and what they have in Pine Hill and some of the other areas. If we all work together, maybe we could make this an area people want to come to in the summer for mountain biking.
Right.
And that's kind of how the discussion started with them about what can we do to work together. And then we were talking, and I said, well, if you're trying to recruit a business here, we can help you, right? People might want to come ski. Let us help you figure out how to bring a business to Rutland, right? That's a good thing for us in the long run.
Sure.
If the whole region's strong. And as I said to them, most of the management team at Killington live in the Rutland County area, right? So we want this region to be strong.
Sure.
And so since then, we've just been working on a lot of different things. And Lyle probably told you we came out with a new program for Castleton.
Yes.
Every student at Castleton gets a free pass at Pico, and then they can upgrade for a small amount to Killington. So they really love that, a real connection between Castleton and Killington. And so just a lot of great things I think are going to keep coming out of that.
That's great. That's great. And I mean, what I keep hearing from people out and about is that you really bring a new energy to the region. That your approach, you've been here, right? But you now that you're at the helm, that you bring a new energy, a fresh set of ideas, and a willingness to work together. So I just think that's
and I'm not sure. I think to me it just never made sense why some people in Rutland maybe never even come up to, if you don't ski, they may never have come up to Killington. So how do we keep working on that, right? So
Sure.
I'm on the hospital board. The hospital's done some parties up at the Peak Restaurant. We knocked that building down at the top of the gondola and put a beautiful building. And it was amazing to me how many people that weren't skiers and they go to an event like that and they go, wow. I mean, you look at the top of, whether you ski or not, if you look out the view out of that building, you get a new appreciation for how beautiful Vermont is, right?
For sure.
So to me, that's the type of thing, I said, oh, wow, that's amazing. Like half this room's never even been up to this building, right? And they live in Rutland and they don't even have any idea. So to me, that's just a great thing that we're all kind of working better together. And I think it's good for the whole region. We
Sure.
live here, we should all want to make the place better.
Sure. Awesome. So I want to talk a little bit about you and your leadership approach. As I mentioned, this is part of a leadership series that I'm doing. So how would you describe your style of leadership, your approach to leadership?
So I don't know if I'd say it was laid back, but I would say I'm definitely not a command and control type style person. Right?
Sure.
I'm definitely a collaborator, feedback. I want to a lot of our meetings are brainstorming. And it's like anything. Some people like that and maybe some don't like that. That just works for me.
Sure.
I'd rather have the group be totally honest as much as we can and just throwing out ideas and trying to figure out, so if we're trying to figure out what can we do to improve some part of our business. I like that. And I also believe that I should have a team that I don't really need to manage that much, right?
Sure.
So I tend to be pretty laid back. We have really strong executive team members that run all our businesses here. And, I kind of have a belief that if I need to really micromanage somebody, I probably have the wrong person. So that's just my style in general.
Yeah.
That, I kind of want to talk through a strategy and then let them have the the ability to implement it the way they want. But then also have a culture where we can constantly be challenging each other to get better, right? So it's a constructive feedback culture, and that sometimes isn't always so easy, right? And
Sure.
This place, there's always things we could be doing better, right? Was the burger presentation good? Was that trail groomed right? Was whatever, right? Or the things we're telling guests, was that the right answer that we gave that person? Or so we're trying to build a culture where, to me, I look at my role as building strategy and culture. So strategy, high level, here's where we're trying to go, and have the right people to go implement the strategy with me helping them, right, to whatever level that makes sense. And then culture is just trying to make sure we have people that are trying to constantly just improve, that people want to work for. I'm a big fan of, saying that the most technically competent person in our business isn't usually the best person. We're a service business, so the soft skills are really important, right? There's certain positions here where you really need the technical skills, but there's a lot of positions that is just being a good manager, being someone that people want to work for or work with, right?
Sure.
So I say it all the time. If we find someone smart that people like to work for and their peers like to work with them, that person usually can go do any job here.
Sure.
Because if they're smart enough to understand it, the reality is whether you're in lodging or food and beverage or in some other department, pretty much what you're trying to accomplish is the same, right? You have your customer, whoever your customer may be.
Sure.
Could be an internal customer, could be an external customer, and then trying to manage your team. So to me, that's kind of the most important from my standpoint, from a managerial standpoint.
Excellent. That's great. So you talked about culture and how, and I get the sense that the culture has changed over the last several years. And a lot of times when I work with organizations around the country, I find that the leader themselves sort of goes through a change or transformation as their culture is changing. How would you describe how your leadership approach has changed or grown?
Yeah, that's interesting. I would say I probably have changed, and some would probably say because I came through finance, right? So my role here had always been like, hey, let's not spend that money, or let's not do that because it's going to cost something, or, we run a very challenging business that's weather dependent and very capital intensive, right?
Sure.
So we go through big ups and downs, and we have some really tough years. So you have to be fiscally responsible. It's really a tough business. So I think I grew up under, wow, we got to always be careful, not spending too much and controlling costs. And when you get too much in that mindset, you're constantly talking about controlling costs as opposed to how we can improve the experience or grow your revenue. I think so. Well, for me, when I took over, we had been in a lot of years of all we did was try to control our costs because everything was about costs. And then when you're controlling costs, usually not too worried about what the guest experience is because you choose the cost over the experience a lot of times.
Right.
And so I think when I took over, and honestly, I sat with my whole executive team, and a lot of them had been here, and we just kind of said, hey, how do we reinvent this place? And I think we all agreed that we were kind of going in the wrong direction. I can't take credit all for it myself.
Sure.
Right? As a group, we just did a lot of stuff that maybe made sense for a reason, or a lot of it was financial, but it kind of backfired from the experience standpoint. We just, as a group, just sat down and said we should change that. So, I would say the first year or two, I became kind of an evangelist for the guest and for feedback and listening to what everybody says. And sometimes, I would get feedback and bring it to somebody, and not everybody wants to hear that, right? Because everyone thinks they know their department and they know best. We already tried that. We tried that before. And so, to me, I think that's probably the biggest piece. I think I definitely changed. I'm less focused on the very specific cost of something, and I'm probably more open to, if the experience is good enough and people have a great time, then the value curve changes where people will be willing to spend money they'll spend more money if they have a better experience.
Sure, absolutely. One of the other things, obviously one of your big accomplishments, it seems, is bringing the World Cup here. It seems my husband and daughter were up the last 2 years, and they said, just last year was so great, and this year was just phenomenal. So what a great accomplishment to get that here, and where do you see that going?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, obviously, what you just said is kind of the reaction we've gotten from everybody, that last year was unbelievable. But we had some challenges with the amount of people we had, right? And we said if our biggest challenge is we have too many people, that'll be a good problem. Well, we had that problem last year, and we had a great event, and everybody really loved it. But we definitely had some challenges, mostly busing, bathrooms, things that come with just having more people than you can handle.
Sure.
And so we spent the last year trying to improve on a lot of those, and even the venue, right? The venue where we built it up by K1. We added drainage and a whole bunch of things to make the vendor village better. The year before, people were standing in a couple inches of mud because it really wasn't set up for a venue like that. And then you go between rain and snow, and that time of year, it's kind of tough. The ground's not really hard. So we did a lot of little things to just improve the flow. So generally, we ended up getting more people this year. But the flow works so well that most people thought we had less people, just because it shows if you move people correctly. And we're pretty good at that, right? That's our whole business, is moving people around the resort. But we hadn't done an event to that magnitude where we had to bring them in by bus and have all the bathrooms. So anyway, by pretty much all accounts, this one was, most people, we got very few negative comments really at all. I mean, everybody just seemed to, and everybody noticed. all the little improvements. That's one nice thing at Killington is our guests notice everything we do. So, you know, when I say we should be more transparent, well, they call you out on everything. The
Sure.
people are so into the mountain, they notice everything. So even for World Cup, people are like, you changed this, you know, the flow here was better, I noticed you did this little thing. And it's great because our teams worked really hard trying to improve that. And
Sure.
so from the course to everything else, you know, the athletes thought the race course was perfect. And but then going forward, you know, we have one more year on our contract. So the first year we were just filling in. We took a weekend. We took the weekend from Aspen because Aspen was taking the finals, and you can only have one World Cup at each location per year, so they won't go back to the same location. So they
Sure.
needed to find a location, so they came here for that. It was really just a one-year deal, but we had such a huge turnout, and everybody thought it was unbelievable that they wanted to come back. So then we did a 2-year deal. This year was the first of the 2 years.
Great.
And so next year is the second year. And, you know, I don't know. I think we're just going to, like a lot of those type of deals, there's Killington, there's the ski team, and then the FIS, which puts on the World Cup. Those three entities really
Sure.
play into that. So we just need to get together. I mean, right now everybody's thought it was another amazing event. I think they're sort of amazed how many people we can draw because they go from our event to the next event and they get 1,500 or 2,000 people per day, and we
Wow.
had 18,000. So,
Wow.
you know, the athletes, for everybody, that's a big deal. The athletes come down, and it doesn't matter what country you're from, they're coming into the finish corral with 18,000 people screaming for them, and they thought it was pretty special.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you've done a lot of things, and we've talked about a lot of things. So what's next? Where are you headed next? What are some of your goals over the next year or so?
Yeah, I mean, actually, right before you came, we were just sitting and laying out kind of what are our big strategic things moving forward, right? So, one, you know, we've had a village on the list forever, which would combine Snowshed and Ram's Head. You know, some of the permits for that. I mean, it's not, the permits just got approved. It's not solely our project. There's a third party that's involved. So, you know, we're hopeful a lot of that's going to start moving forward. But on the other hand, we're also laying out what is our plan outside of that, right? Because
Sure.
we want to work on what we can control. So I think we've done really well with a lot of things. But, you know, next big improvements, we need to start putting some infrastructure in, like we took the building at the Peak down and put a brand new building. People love it. It's amazing. We still have some old base lodges that we need to change out. So that's what we were talking about. And what are the next lift projects? We have a couple slow lifts and a couple other ones that we'd like to improve. I mean, in general, we have a pretty great lift network here, and
Sure.
they've spent a lot of money, but we need to continue to update that. And then I think the other big thing is on the mountain. We just have a lot of things from a skier's perspective that we can do, I think, to really improve the experience. And to me, it's all about just continuing to look at how do we make your experience, especially on the big days, on the busy days, how do we
Sure.
continue to make those experiences better? So, you know, it's working on keeping people not feeling like they're too close to each other, so it's trail improvements, those type of things, tunnel bridges to separate people and those things. That's what we're working through now in kind of a 5-7 year plan of really kind of re-envision some parts of the mountain and how we can make keep all the attributes of such a great mountain, but also change the flow so people feel like we continue to try to improve the place.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, great. Well, this has been fun talking to you and getting to know you a little bit better. And thank you.
Well, great. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.